Welcome to Reading Genesis. My name is Stephen Longclough. I'm a priest serving in the Anglican Church in North America and also a United States Navy chaplain. Join me as we discover the sacramental and enchanted world of the Bible through reading Genesis together. We'll be resuming in Genesis 30 this evening. If you remember, last time we met all of Jacob's new kids. So Jacob was originally betrothed to Rachel. He worked for 7 years for Rachel, and then the night comes, the great wedding night. He's going to marry his beloved Rachel, and surprise, it's Leah. It's not Rachel, because Laban, their father, deceived Jacob. So Jacob is married to Leah, the older sister. Jacob agrees to work for another 7 years for Rachel. After the marriage, we saw all of the problems that comes from multiple spouses, multiple wives, and how Jacob would have a bunch of kids with Leah, and Leah's jealous of Rachel, and that whole dynamic because Jacob loves Rachel but does not love Leah. The Lord blesses Leah's womb, so she brings forth an abundance of kids, and then she stops having kids, so then she gives her maidservant to Jacob to have kids by her maidservant as a surrogate womb. Rachel does the same thing. This is back and forth, this whole thing. So eventually what we have is as of now, 11 sons and 1 daughter. And we're going to have another son later, but we haven't had young Benjamin yet. But he will be another future child. So we pick it up then in Genesis 30. We're actually going to back up just a little bit from where we left off last time and start in verse 25 so that we get the context. As soon as Rachel had borne Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, "Send me away that I may go to my own home and country. Give me my wives and my children for whom I have served you, that I may go, for you know the service that I had given you." But Laban said to him, "If I have found favor in your sight, I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you," or that Yahweh has blessed me because of you. We spoke about this last week, so I won't say too much, but the fact that Laban is a man who practices divination. We will learn more and more about Laban, that he is quite the deceiver and pretty much a scoundrel in his own right. Now, why would a person practice divination? For 2 reasons. You practice divination to either learn something that you didn't already know, or gain power over something or somebody that you didn't have before. So it's all personal gain. You either want to know knowledge that you didn't have before, or have power that you didn't have before. Verse 28, "Name your wages and I will give it." Jacob said to him, "You yourself know how I have served you and how your livestock has fared with me. For you had little before I came, and it has increased abundantly. And Yahweh has blessed you wherever I turned. But now, when shall I provide for my own household also?" He said, "What shall I give you?" Jacob said, "You shall not give me anything. If you will do this for me, I will again pasture your flock and keep it. Let me pass through all your flock today, removing from it every speckled and spotted lamb and every black lamb, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and they shall be my wages. So my honesty will answer for me later, when you come to look into my wages with you. Everyone that is not speckled and spotted among the goats and the black among the lambs is found with me. That's found with me shall be counted as stolen." All right, so let's pause there. So what's going on? They're making another deal. And we're going to learn that this is going to be a 6-year deal. Laban says, what do you want from me? What shall I give you? And Jacob says, "I don't want you to give me anything. I will work for my wage. I want you to pay me for my labor. I don't want you to give me anything." He said, I will work with you for a period of time. I will take your flocks and your cattle out to the pasture again. That's what that means. And I want you to give me, as my wage, some of those animals. So he asks for the spotted and speckled amongst the sheep and every black lamb, and the spotted and speckled amongst the goats. So all the impure, right? What we would think about pure is the ones that are either entirely white or entirely black or something like that. So he is asking for the black lambs, not the black sheep, and not for the black goats. He wants the spotted and speckled of those, and that's what he's asking for. Okay, I'm going to work for you, and I'll take that as my wage. Okay, so verse 34, Laban said, "Good, let it be as you have said." But that day Laban removed the male goats that were striped and spotted, and all the female goats that were speckled and spotted, every one that had white on it, and every lamb that was black, and put them in charge of his sons. And he set a distance of 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob. And Jacob pastured the rest of Laban's flock. So what happened? Laban was not faithful to his end of the bargain. Laban just agreed that he will pay Jacob, that his wage would be those particular animals, the spotted and the speckled and all that. And then Laban goes in deceptively and carves out some of those animals and sends them away. So that way, when Jacob comes to the flocks, Jacob will not receive his full pay. Laban's holding some of those back, those spotted and speckled lambs from the flock. He's holding those back for himself. So Laban is being deceptive. Verse 37. Then Jacob took fresh sticks of poplar and almond and plane trees and peeled white streaks in them, exposing the white of the sticks. So this what we're about to read is kind of an odd passage in Genesis. But I read it as Jacob is doing this in response to what Laban has done. If you remember, Jacob has worked with Laban for a long time. Jacob knows, 14 years, right? 14 years for 2 wives. Jacob knows what the flocks are. He's familiar with Laban's flocks. He would likely know that Laban is holding some back. And so Jacob is not going to be deceptive at all. Laban's the one who's deceptive. Jacob is going to be cunning. Jacob is going to use a lot of wisdom here on how he can make the best out of this situation he's in, where he finds the master, quote, Laban, is a deceptive master who only wants to do things to promote himself rather than do things to help out Jacob. So, verse 37 again. Then Jacob took fresh sticks of poplar and almond and plane trees and peeled white streaks in them, exposing the white of the sticks. He set the sticks that he had peeled in front of the flocks in the troughs, that is, the watering places, where the flocks came to drink. And since they bred, when they came to drink, the flocks bred in front of the sticks. And so the flocks brought forth striped, speckled, and spotted. All right, let's pause there. What is Jacob doing? This is, like I said, this is sort of an odd story, particularly for us who don't work in an agrarian or agricultural society. And I'll be the very first to say I'm not a farmer. I've never worked with sheep and lambs. So I'm trying to understand this as well. He takes these poplar, almond, and plane trees, the sticks of them. He peels streaks in them, so he's peeling the bark back to expose the gum underneath. And he sets the sticks in the troughs where they drink. That way, when they go to drop their head in the trough to drink, they're going to see that. It's going to look spotted and speckled. And that's also where they breed. So they're going to get a drink, and then they're going to breed with each other. And this will somehow bring forth more spotted and speckled lambs and sheep and goats. At least that's his hope. That's his hope. Verse 40, and Jacob separated the lambs and set the faces of the flocks toward the striped and all the black and the flock of Laban. He put his own droves apart and did not put them with Laban's flock. Wherever the stronger of the flocks were breeding, Jacob would lay the sticks in the troughs before the eyes of the flock, that they might breed among the sticks. But for the feebler of the flock, he would not lay them there. So the feebler would be Laban's and the stronger Jacob's. So he's also got this plan on how they can reproduce, where they will reproduce in his favor. So when it's the stronger of the flocks, he implements this plan so that they'll see the spotted and the speckled sticks and things like that, and they will bring forth according to that kind, the spotted and speckled, as they see these sticks and their water. He withholds that from the weaker of the flocks, so that when they reproduce normal, non-spotted, non-speckled flocks. So that would be like just a regular white lamb or a white goat or something like that. So after this whole breeding process and this idea that he has of putting forth spotted and speckled almond, plane, and poplar sticks in the water. This is the result of this grand plan. And this was a six-year job that he did. We're going to learn in just a few minutes that he did this over the course of 6 years with these flocks. Thus the man increased greatly and had large flocks, female servants and male servants, and camels and donkeys. So it worked in his favor. At the end of the 6 years, the spotted and speckled flocks that he requested from Laban, there was a lot more of those than there were of the regular flocks. Plus, the spotted and speckled were much stronger than the regular flocks. Now, he has not done anything deceptive in this, has he? He has not gone behind Laban's back and lied or done anything. He's not done anything evil or sinful. He is using wisdom, and this proves that he's a very cunning person. Right? Jacob is cunning. So he is working out in his favor. And this is what you have to do sometimes when your taskmaster, when your boss is an evil man. Right? You don't repay evil for evil. That's not what Jacob is doing. But he is applying wisdom and cunning to the situation to make the best out of the situation that he possibly has, or that he possibly can. Be honest with you, me being not growing up around cattle and growing up on a farm, I don't know how this spotted and speckled thing works with the trees and all that. It could be that this was the wisdom of the day, and he somehow had a scientific knowledge of shepherding, and he knew that this would work. Some people have suggested that maybe this is, superstition or whatever, maybe superstitious, and he's applying the superstition to it in hopes that it works. Whatever it is, whether it's a scientific knowledge that he has from a lot of experience, or whether it is a superstitious thing, whatever it might be, what we see is God blesses it, right? God is the one who brings forth these flocks in his favor. So Jacob greatly increased and had large flocks, female servants and male servants, and camels and donkeys. Chapter 31. Now Jacob heard that the sons of Laban were saying, Jacob has taken all that was our father's, and from what was our father's he has gained all this wealth. Right? So now Laban's family is starting to backbite and gossip about Jacob. That, Jacob's he's taken all our stuff away. He's taken all of Dad's wealth. He's a bad guy. Verse 2. And Jacob saw that Laban did not regard him with favor as before. So it's not working out in Laban's favor anymore, right? Through Jacob's skill, cunning, and wisdom, he has brought forth these flocks in his favor, in Jacob's favor, and Laban doesn't like it one bit. Not one bit. Where before, if you remember, we learned that Laban, through divination, learned that if Jacob was with him, that Yahweh would richly bless Laban for Jacob's sake. So Laban's idea this whole time is, let me keep Jacob around as long as I can, because when Jacob's around, I'm blessed by Yahweh. Well, now he's realizing, this isn't really working out in my favor anymore. So notice how quickly he turns against Jacob. This man who's been working with him now for 20 years. He just quickly turns when Laban realizes that he's getting the short end of the stick. Verse 3. Then Yahweh said to Jacob, return to the land of your fathers and to your kindred, and I will be with you. So Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah into the field where his flock was, and said to them, I see that your father does not regard me with favor as he did before, but the God of my father has been with me. You know that I have served your father with all my strength, yet your father has cheated me and changed my wages 10 times. But God did not permit him to harm me. If he said, the spotted shall be your wages, then all the flocks bore spotted. And if he said, the striped shall be your wages, then all the flock bore striped. All right, so we see that God is blessing Jacob. Verse 9. Thus God had taken away the livestock of your father and given them to me. In the breeding season of the flock, I lifted up my eyes and saw in a dream that the goats that mated with the flocks were striped, spotted, and mottled. Then the angel of God said to me in a dream, Jacob, and I said, here I am. And he said, lift up your eyes and see. All the goats that mate with the flock are striped, speckled, and mottled. For I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar and made a vow to me. Now arise, go out from this land and return to the land of your kindred. Let's pause. What is God talking about? I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar to me. Remember when that incident happened? We looked at that a couple weeks ago. That was when Jacob received the vision of the great ladder or staircase up into heaven. And he took a rock after that vision, and he anointed it with oil, and that became Bethel, the house of God. So that is the event that God is referring back to. Now arise, go out from this land, and return to the land of your kindred. Verse 14. Then Rachel and Leah answered and said to him, Is there any portion or inheritance left to us in our father's house? Are we not regarded by him as foreigners? For he has sold us, and he has indeed devoured our money. All the wealth that God has taken away from our father belongs to us and to our children. Now then, whatever God has said to you, do. So pause there. So we see that even his own daughters can see that Laban is not a kind man, is not a good guy. By their own witness, they have said, we are regarded by him as foreigners. It means Laban's not even treating his own daughters as his own blood, right? He is out to devour anyone that he can for his own personal gain, even the wealth of his daughters. They say that he has sold us and he has indeed devoured our money. So not the way that you would expect a father to act towards his own daughters. Laban is a very, very evil man. Verse 17, So Jacob arose and sent his sons and his wives on camels. He drove away all his livestock, all his property that he had gained, and the livestock in his possession that he had acquired in Padan Aram, to go to the land of Canaan to his father Isaac. Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel stole her father's household gods. So Laban is the kind of guy who has household gods on top of it all. Now, what is Laban doing? He's going to shear his sheep. This event, the shearing of the sheep, would have taken probably around a week to complete. So this is not something that you do in a day. This is something that you go out into the fields and you camp the whole time, and you're just constantly shearing the sheep. It's a whole huge process that you do with the whole labor force. So Jacob knows that Laban's about to go shear the sheep, and he says, now's my chance, right? While he's out there shearing the sheep with all his flocks and with all his people, he's going to be distracted with that. He's not going to be looking to see what I'm doing. I can get away now. Verse 20. And Jacob tricked Laban, the Aramean, by not telling him that he intended to flee. He fled with all that he had, and arose and crossed the Euphrates, and set his face toward the hill country of Gilead. What does it mean when he tricked Laban, the Aramean? It's an interesting verb. Jacob tricked Laban, the Aramean. Well, it doesn't mean that he played a trick, like a trick or treat kind of thing, right? And it also doesn't really have the connotation of deception, though some Bibles translate it as deception. It's more he saw an opportunity and he took it. He saw the opportunity to get away and he took it. Verse 22, When it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob had fled, he took his kinsman with him and pursued him for 7 days and followed close after him into the hill country of Gilead. But God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream by night and said to him, Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. Let's pause there. How would you feel if God came to you in a dream and said, Be careful that you don't speak anything good or bad to this guy? Right? This is one of mine. You better be very careful how you talk to this guy, right? My ears would certainly perk up, and I'd say, oh, wow, okay, something's pretty serious going on here. Verse 25, And Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country, and Laban with his kinsmen pitched tents in the hill country of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, Notice the sob story that Laban's going to give. It's total deceit. He doesn't mean a word of it. But he trumps up this whole story of how he was taken advantage of, and, oh, you're taking my family away from me, and blah, 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 blah. Verse 26, Laban said to Jacob, What have you done that you have tricked me and driven away my daughters like captives of the sword? Right? Is that what Jacob did with his 2 daughters? No, just a second ago, his daughters were telling Jacob, our dad's a scumbag. He's a scoundrel. He's horrible. He's sold everything that we have. He's devoured our money. You know, they're happy to get away from Laban as well. But Laban's got this whole story that goes with. Verse 27, Why did you flee secretly and trick me and did not tell me, so that I might have sent you away with mirth and songs and tambourine and lyre? I was going to have a big party for you because of our wonderful working relationship. You've been working with me for 20 years. I wanted to have a huge going away for you. We didn't get that opportunity. Yeah, right. Verse 28, and why did you not permit me to kiss my sons and my daughters farewell? Now you have done foolishly. It is in my power to do you harm. But the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. Notice whose God is whose. Yahweh is not the God of Laban. That's probably no surprise to us, knowing the character of Laban. Laban refers to Yahweh as the God of Jacob's father. That is Isaac, the God of Isaac, and by extension, the God of Abraham as well. And now you have gone away because you longed greatly for your father's house. Did I skip a verse? No, verse 30. And now you have gone away because you longed greatly for your father's house. But why did you steal my gods? And all of this, that's the one thing he's really concerned about, right? Why did you steal my gods? Which they did, right? Rachel stole the gods. Rachel stole the household gods. Now, why did Rachel do that? First of all, why does Rachel care about her dad's idols? Well, it could be for a couple of reasons. When you read commentators and scholars on this, they're divided. So I'll give you a few views and then I'll tell you what I think. Some people say that Rachel stole the gods because she also worshipped the gods and wanted to take them for herself. I don't buy that. Some people say that Rachel stole the gods to be vindictive against Laban. Or perhaps the idols themselves were made of precious metals and she could melt them down and sell the money. Perhaps. I think she stole the gods because she believed that if Laban had kept the gods, that he would use these idols to call down curses upon them. And so she's trying to undo Laban's power. Now, why would she do that? First of all, we need to remember how idolatry works. I've spoken about this before, but it always bears repeating because we have it in our mind that an idolater is someone who carves a piece of wood or fashions an idol out of some piece of metal and then starts worshiping the thing that they just created. That's not really how idolatry works, okay? That's part of it, but that's not the full picture. What you do with idolatry is you do have a piece of wood or you do have a piece of stone or a piece of metal that you've made. Then you call down the gods to indwell that idol. You call down the spirits to indwell that idol, and then you can communicate with the spirits through the idol. The idea there is because the spirits don't have bodies, they need a body to indwell, then you can communicate with them. Now, we need to ask ourselves, who are these spirits? Well, we've already witnessed a couple of places in the early chapters of Genesis where we saw several different falls of angels. Right? We saw that angels in Genesis chapter 6 came down to earth and they mated with the sons of God. The sons of God, who are the angels, mated with the daughters of men. We talked about that, and that's what brought about the flood narrative. The offspring of that unholy union were the Nephilim, the giants. We also saw later that at the Tower of Babel incident, right after the Tower of Babel, God pulls away from humanity, and he's going to rule through vice regents, so to speak. And the vice regents are the angels, other angels, who he puts in charge of the nations, of the 70 nations. We read about that in places like Deuteronomy 32, where God apportions the nations to the number of the sons of God. We also read about that in other places like Psalm 82. I believe it's Psalm 82, where he passes judgment on the angels because they took worship for themselves. So these angels end up falling as well. The question is, what happens when they fall? Are they evil spirits, or is that the origin of demons and things like that? And there's different scholarly debates on that, which I won't go into right now because I'm actually really interested in those debates. But we could talk about that later. But basically, that's what you have going on here. Very likely, it's these fallen angels and they come and indwell these idols, and then you can communicate with these angels. Now, why in the Bible are we forbidden to participate in idolatry? We are not forbidden to participate in idolatry because idolatry is just a stupid, fruitless practice, so don't give yourself to something that doesn't work. Rather, we are forbidden to participate in idolatry precisely because it does work. There is power in idolatry. When you are, not you people in this room, of course, but when a person like Laban is an idolater, which is very common amongst the pagan religions at this time, they are truly communicating with the evil spirits of this world. They are truly participating in that spiritual realm and having fellowship, so to speak, with evil spirits. So that's one of the many reasons we are forbidden to participate in idolatry. Same thing with things like divination and stuff. Or even witchcraft, right? If you find a witch in your midst, the law says that person needs to be, it's either cast out or executed, right? And it's not because these things don't have any power. It's precisely because they have a lot of power. And you, Jews, need to be fully committed to God, and Him only shall you serve, not serving the gods of the other nations. Okay? So that's idolatry. So then why does Rachel steal these gods? Well, I said before, I think she's stealing these gods to undo Laban's power. Right? If I have his gods, then he can't cry out to his gods and put some sort of curse on us or use their power to come attack us or whatever. It's like a rear assault, so to speak, against his power. So with all that, back to verse 31 of chapter 31. So actually, let's back up to verse 30. And now you have gone away because you longed greatly for your father's house, but why did you steal my gods? Jacob answered and said to Laban, he answers the first part of the question, because I was afraid, for I thought that you would take your daughters from me by force. Anyone with whom you find your gods shall not live. In the presence of our kinsmen, point out what I have that is yours, and take it. Now Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them. So Jacob pleads ignorance, because he is ignorant in this whole situation. Jacob says, hey, the reason I left, the reason I had to sneak away, is because I was afraid that you were going to take your daughters from me. Now with the God situation in your household idols, we didn't take your household idols. In fact, if you find your household idols with anyone in my company, we will put them to death. Verse 33. So Laban went into Jacob's tent and into Leah's tent and into the tent of the two female servants, but he did not find them. And he went out of Leah's tent and entered Rachel's. Now, Rachel had taken the household gods and put them in the camel's saddle and sat on them. Laban felt all about the tent, but did not find them. And she said to her father, let not my lord be angry that I cannot rise before you, for the way of women is upon me. So he searched, but did not find the household gods. So what does Rachel tell him? Now, this is interesting. Now, if a superior, if superior enters into the room, at this time of culture, everyone would stand in respect for the superior. Or someone of a higher status, or however you want to say that. So Laban being Rachel's father, the expectation is Laban enters the tent, she would stand out of respect for her father. And she says, sorry, Dad, I can't stand because the way of woman is upon me. And she's talking, of course, about her menstrual cycle. She says, I can't stand because I'm menstruating right now. And what she's actually doing is she's sitting on the household gods. She's sitting on those idols and hiding them from Laban. We don't know if Rachel's actually menstruating or if that's just a lie she told her dad so that she could keep the idols hidden. But I do find the great irony is that if she is truly menstruating, what does that mean for the gods, the idols? Well, according to the Levitical law, when any time a man or woman has a discharge of bodily fluid, whether it's regular bodily fluid or sexual bodily fluid or whatever, that person is unclean. And we could talk about why that is, but I'm not going to get into why that is. But for her, if she were menstruating, she would be unclean until her cycle's over. And I think it's up to 7 days because she's got the blood flow. Further, anything she touches becomes unclean. Anywhere she would sit becomes unclean. Now, this is according to the Levitical law. We're not told in Genesis if they have this understanding of clean and unclean yet, or if this is something that is given later as part of the law. But what I do find very, very humorous, to be honest with you, and ironic, is that if she is menstruating, that means that the idols that she is sitting on have now become unclean according to the law. And this is really undoing the power of the idols, isn't it? I can take these idols and I can sit on them and they now become unclean according to the law that will later be given to Moses on Mount Sinai. Though I said before that the gods of the other nations are absolutely real and powerful, they don't hold a candle to Yahweh, right? They're not as powerful as Yahweh. And so this is a humorous way in our narrative to kind of poke fun at the gods of the other nations and saying, yeah, you are powerful. You do have this all great power. Laban even divinized, through divination, that when Jacob stays with him, that he gets rich and all this stuff and he's richly blessed because of Jacob. And yeah, there's power and all that, but we can also just sit on you and make you unclean at the same time, right? So how much power is there really? Continuing in verse 36. Then Jacob became angry and berated Laban. Jacob said to Laban, "What is my offense? What is my sin that you have hotly pursued me? For you have felt through all my goods. What have you found of all your household goods? Set it here before my kinsmen and your kinsmen, that they may decide between us two. These 20 years I have been with you. Your ewes and your female goats have not miscarried, and I have not eaten the rams of your flocks." Pause there. Said 20 years, right? So that's 7 years for Rachel, 7 years for Rachel again, because he got Leah, and then another 6 years when he was doing the thing with the poplar and the almond and the plane trees with the flocks previously. What was torn by wild beasts I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it myself. From my hand you required it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. There I was. By day the heat consumed me, and the cold by night, and my sleep fled from my eyes. These 20 years I have been in your house. I have served you 14 for your 2 daughters, and 6 years for your flock, and you have changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had not been on my side, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. God saw my affliction and the labor of my hands and rebuked you last night. So Jacob's got some righteous indignation against Laban here. And Jacob realizes, in verse 42 is a testament to the fact that Jacob understands why Laban is keeping him around. You only want me around because when I'm around, you are greatly blessed because I serve Yahweh, right? If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, the fear of Isaac had not been on my side, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. Verse 43, Then Laban answered and said to Jacob, The daughters are my daughters, the children are my children, the flocks are my flocks, and all that you see is mine. Which is not true, but Laban is trying to argue, he's trying to hold on to something in this argument, right? But what can I do this day for these my daughters, or for their children, whom they have borne? Come now, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be a witness between you and me. So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. And Jacob said to his kinsmen, Gather stones. And they took stones and made a heap, and they ate there by the heap. Laban called it Jegor Sahudatha, but Jacob called it Galeed. Laban said, This heap is a witness between you and me today. Therefore he named it Galeed, and Mitzpah, for he said, Yahweh watch between you and me, when we are out of one another's sight. If you oppress my daughters, or if you take wives beside my daughters, although no one is with us, see, God is witness between you and me. Then Laban said to Jacob, See this heap and the pillar which I have set between you and me. This heap is a witness, and the pillar is a witness, that I will not pass over this heap to you, and you will not pass over this heap and this pillar to me to do me harm. the God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge between us. Let's pause there. So what just happened? They decided to cut a covenant with each other. A peace treaty, basically. Jacob takes a stone, a single stone, and he sets that up as his witness. Laban takes a pile of stones, and he sets that up as a heap of stones, is what it says. And he sets that up as his witness. So you got these two witnesses, Jacob's stone and Laban's heap of stones. Now, some people have suggested, and I find it compelling, that this is actually a representation of their gods. So Jacob, who worships Yahweh, the Most High God, he has this single stone to represent his God, where Laban has all of these stones stacked on top of each other to represent all of the little idols and the gods that he worships, the gods of the nations. But basically, they have said, these stones are a testimony and a witness to us and by extension our posterity, that we will not cross over them to attack the other. So I'm not going to cross these stones to come attack you or sneak up on you and steal your stuff or whatever. And similarly, you're not going to do that to me. Right? We're going to make a peace treaty and agree not to kill each other here. And we're going to do it with these sets of stones as a witness for us. Also notice who Laban swears by, verse 53. He swears by the God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their father. So who is the God of Abraham? That's Yahweh. Who is Nahor? Secondly, Nahor is Abraham's brother. So remember, their father is Terah. When Laban says the God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, and the God of their father, that's Terah, let that God judge between us. What he's really trying to do is find a commonality between him and Jacob, right? So Jacob's grandfather is Abraham. Laban's grandfather, maybe great-grandfather, is Nahor. So that's where he's descended from. He's descended from Nahor's line. Jacob's descended from Abraham's line. So he's trying to find a commonality. If you go back a few generations, we all used to worship the same God, so let's swear on that God, even though Laban doesn't worship that God anymore. As you can tell, he worships these other pagan gods, these idols. But he is at least giving lip service to Yahweh and saying, let that God judge between us. So Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac, and Jacob offered a sacrifice in the hill country and called his kinsmen to eat bread. They ate bread and spent the night in the hill country. And finally, verse 55. Early in the morning, Laban arose and kissed his grandchildren and his daughters and blessed them. Then Laban departed and returned home. And that concludes chapter 31. And we'll stop there for the night. I want to offer some final reflections before we close. As I read the story, and we read a whole lot tonight, but there was a lot of narrative to get through. As I read this over and over in preparation for this Bible study, I was struck with how manipulative and deceitful Laban is, and how Jacob is really the opposite. Like, Jacob uses a lot of wisdom, and he's cunning in his dealing with Laban, but he's never deceitful. He never lies. I mean, even when Rachel steals the household gods from Laban, Jacob has no idea that she did that. Jacob doesn't authorize the stealing of the household gods, right? And even then, Jacob tries to make it right, saying, hey, if you find those gods, we'll make it right, and we'll put to death the person who stole your property. I'm not interested in stealing from you, Laban. I'm not interested in profiting through sinful means from you, either through stealing or killing or anything like that. And he's probably thinking to himself under his breath, that's the kind of person you are, but I'm not that way, right? I'm going to live a holy and righteous life. That is so often how we, I think, as Christians feel in this life. We live in this crooked, broken, sinful world, and we sometimes have to work alongside of or even work for the Labans of this world. We have to work for people who are only looking out for number one, themselves. They're not interested in helping you out. They're not interested in they're not interested in your well-being or the well-being of your family at all. They only want to promote themselves. And as Christians, how do we respond to that kind of person? I think Jacob gives us a great example on how we can respond to that kind of person. We don't treat that person with contempt. We don't return evil for evil, right? As the old saying goes, two wrongs don't make a right. So if that person wrongs me, I don't turn around and then wrong them and get back at them and get vengeance upon them. That's not how Christians act in this world. We are ruled by a different set of morals than the world is ruled by, right? We are ruled by God and his morality. So we don't return evil for evil. Two wrongs don't make a right in God's economy. Two wrongs make a right in the world's economy, but they don't make a right in God's economy. The world would say, hey, if you're working for a jerk boss, you know what you do? Well, let me tell you all the things that you could do to that jerk boss, and you could deceive all kinds of stuff and think all kinds of ways to get back and get vengeance and get back on top. Because that's what the world does. The world's all about getting on top. And if I have to step on some people and slash some people and even do some violent things to people or deceive some people along the way, then that's what I'm going to do because it's all about me. But Christians don't do that. What Jacob does, as our witness to this, Jacob never lies, but he's also very wise in how he goes about it. It reminds me of the verse that said that encourages Christians to be as innocent as doves, but as cunning as vipers, right? Wise or wise as serpents, as it sometimes say. Be innocent as doves, but wise as serpents. So we want to use wisdom in how we interact with the Labans of this world. We don't want to simply become a doormat and let the Labans of this world walk all over us. Though there may come a time for that, and that's okay. It's okay if we get walked on from time to time, right? And I'm not encouraging you to invite trauma into your life for that, but humbling ourselves from time to time can be a good exercise when we're dealing with the Labans of this world. So we are called to use wisdom in dealing with these people, to be very cunning, to be wise, and also to never go against God's morality. It's never okay for you to use Laban's tactics against Laban if the Laban in your life is using evil tactics, right? That's not what we see Jacob doing. Notice the outcome of all this. God blesses Jacob, right? When Jacob does it God's way, God richly blesses Jacob. He walks away from this actually on top, doesn't he? He's managed to separate himself from Laban 6 years after he originally wanted to, by the way. This took some time for him to get out of this. And sometimes for us, in our situations, it may take a little bit longer than we want to find some resolution in our lives. But it took him 6 years to get out of this. But in the end, I believe God walked through him this whole time and was with him while he was going through this huge, massive problem with this evil relative that he had. That's my reflections. And any final thoughts or closing ideas before we finish, or questions or anything like that? Well, let's close. Lord, thank you for this time to come together and study your word, and thank you for Jacob's testimony to us on how to continue to live a godly, righteous life, even in the midst of adversity. We pray that you would be with us now and guide us as we go home. We ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you for joining me in Reading Genesis. If you'd like to contact me, I'm available at reading.genesis.podcast@gmail.com. And now, may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen.